To the show Conscious Living on Conscious Living Radio at Co-op Radio in Vancouver, Wednesday night, 6 to 7. Also available as a podcast after the fact, after this live Facebook. And that's www.consciouslivingradio.org. Also our YouTube channels. Right, Mark?
That is correct, Tasha.
I'm Tasha Simms here with Mark Caron. And today we're speaking with the author of a guide, a practical guide that helps release the weight and patterns of our generational legacies. Her book is called Heal Your Ancestral Roots, Release the Family Patterns That Hold You Back. Anuradha Dayal-Gulati is an energy practitioner, a transformational coach who specializes in ancestral and emotional healing. She's trained in flower essence therapy, family constellation therapy, and her book explores the energetic patterns that are held in our family lineage, patterns that can create anything from financial distress to sibling rivalry to divorce to happy relationships, basically how we do relationships. The book offers exercises and meditations and really does illuminate how the wounding of our parents and our grandparents and their parents can either keep us stuck repeating patterns or offer us a portal to support us in our own evolution. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tasha. Thank you, Mark. It's wonderful to be here with you both.
Oh, I'm excited you're here. I love how you say, if we don't live with intention and courage, we're likely to find ourselves hijacked by others, including our ancestors. So I want to dive right into there. Tell us what you mean by that. And I think it's going to connect with what inspired you to write your book, Heal Your Ancestral Roots, Release the Family Patterns That Hold You Back.
I think it's true that our ancestral energy surrounds us. I would not have believed it. In fact, when I started going for family constellation work, the two teachers that were teaching me said, you walked in with all of your ancestors. And I was like, I don't really believe this. But I've come to realize and learn that this energy is surrounding us all the time, whether it's in a negative way or it's in a positive way. And if it's in a negative way, you want to make sure that it's actually not burdening your life, that your ancestors are not acting as a ceiling on your life. So that's kind of what made me realize, like, we have to do something to lift this burden, and traditions to work with this ancestral energy existed in a lot of traditions, because subconsciously, our ancestors are not present. They're part of our subconscious. They're part of the part that's acting not consciously. So how do we receive the message from the subconscious? How do we receive the message from the invisible world that's influencing us, that's controlling us?
And how specifically do you understand these patterns that we might notice through the generations being transmitted down the line, so to speak? How does it happen energetically?
So essentially, transgenerational patterns are the patterns of unresolved emotions, unresolved actions, where the ancestors want to resolve something. And then we become the ones who take on pieces of what is unresolved and come in trying to resolve those. And when we do that, we actually might think of ourselves as victims, but we really are actually the heroes or the heroines or sheroes of this journey. Because when we start to resolve that piece of it, we actually shift those who came before us, and we shift those who come after us. And when we do that, we're not just healing ourselves, we're healing those who came before, after us, but we're also healing the world. We are also filling a space, a void that we came to fill, that we came to do the sacred work of repair.
And specifically, so there's this realm of it being transmitted, you're saying emotionally. And my understanding is it's very connected with losses, whether it's lost dreams or lost people who were never grieved, emotions that weren't completed. That's the kind of emotional transmission that occurs. How does it then translate into the physical, into a belief, let's say, in a family system, or an obvious pattern? Can you touch on that?
So I had a client who came to me initially, and she said, we are a nuclear family. You could fit my family in a shoebox. It's a very small family, and we don't really have any issues. I find it really hard to believe what you're saying, because we don't feel, we don't trust, and we don't take.
Hmm.
That was the family belief system. So if I was to ask you, can you fill in the blank? In my family, we, and just allow yourself to free write for put a time of 4 or 5 minutes. Don't judge yourself. And if you write, you'll start to see the limiting beliefs that are running your life, that are controlling your life. Perhaps in my family, we don't deserve joy. In my family, money is not important. In my family, education is everything. In my family, education is not important, but we have these beliefs that are running our subconscious patterning, programming in our conscious life. And that's one level of the family patterning. Family patterning, can come up in much more subtle ways. Is it okay if I share a story of a client?
Of course.
So there was this young girl who came to me. She had dropped out of second year of law school, and that had ruptured her relationship with her family. And she was really upset. She was not feeling well. It was just, she had lost a lot of weight. And when we started talking, we discovered that her mother had eloped, dropped out of college, gotten pregnant with her. And now when she's dropping out of law school, although she may not have necessarily seen it, it's upsetting the mother. It's like she's seeing her daughter repeat what she once did, and she doesn't want her to do it. And, when I talked about this being like a family wound and maybe it was time for healing, and she was like, well, I don't really buy it. Why me? And we said, all right, let's explore a little further. And we found out that her maternal grandmother was in medical school, dropped out,
Right,
got married, then got divorced, and went back and finished medical school. So this pattern of women, men, education, it actually went back. So it's not even necessarily one of loss, but it shows itself up in a different way. But there are patterns that keep repeating. And so
your story is loss of a dream. The one who went to medical school, the mother, they're all loss of something they wanted to do, and then they gave it up.
Yes.
And the other hit I'm getting about your client is there's a loyalty factor here. It's almost like if she went further than, and it would be totally unconscious, if she went further than the mother, as if she's somehow breaking loyalty to the system. Is that something you've also found with clients?
Yes, there is always that invisible loyalty. Can I be more successful than my mother, more successful than my father? Do I have to be less than? The guilt if you're more than. Yeah. And this is something I think a lot of people unconsciously struggle with, this invisible loyalty, as it's called. And I think this is where, when we honor our ancestors, we shift towards receiving blessings. So, transforming it to, I want the blessings of my ancestors for my work, for my journey, for my business, for my marriage, for my, the blessings allow you to go further without guilt.
So you can let go of whatever pain they may have experienced that you might be still carrying, that you can let go of, right?
Yes.
and invite blessing. And before we started today, I was telling you when I've seen clients open to that, how profound it is, because they realize that something that they've been wrestling with day in, day out, perhaps, isn't the weight of it, the totality of it. They don't actually have to process because it's not theirs. They are carrying it. So again, bringing in the energy, letting go of that then leaves you with what's yours to work with. So there's quite a lightening of being that happens, I find, in this work. Would you agree?
Yes, that's so
Yeah.
true. Because part of the invisible loyalty is also one of seeking permission, almost, subconsciously, without recognizing it. We want the parent to give permission, or anybody else, the grandparent, whoever it is, to give permission. But they don't necessarily know that there is this underlying expectation, permission. So just the sheer act of always asking for the blessing or the honoring that happens gives you the freedom to go forward without the guilt.
That's good. That's interesting. I've also noticed how people will get angry in this work if you are poking holes in any way, probing a little too deeply into a core belief or some held belief where they perceive, like they defend the system, basically. If the family and the generations are the system, I find sometimes questions that feel too intense or too direct promote a kind of real angry response. Have you found that when you've been doing this work?
Yes, there's definitely like a feeling, because this is our root chakra. We are unconsciously loyal to the tribe.
Right.
And it, just asking us to judge or let go can raise those questions of, my loyalty to the tribe, my question of survival. Where
Right.
do I belong if I don't belong to the tribe?
Right.
So I think that's a really interesting point you've raised, Tasha.
And I even remember it as a teenager when I was, full of angst and complaining about my family. I could do that. But if somebody else did that, I would get really ticked off. Like, that's my brother or whatever it is, but I could do it. And so again, it's a weird sort of, it's a very delicate territory that we enter, I think, with people when we do this, because you're literally accessing unconscious information and people will act out of there and not even know, as you say, right? Not even be aware that that's what they're doing. And yet the payoff for this is so incredible. Can you share how you perceive the value of doing this work, and also perhaps why our ancestors want us to do this work?
So in the Eastern traditions and the Native American traditions, our ancestors, like you said, are up to 7 generations who came before. So it's not just our parents or our grandparents, but it's those who came up to 7 generations before. And so it's 252 mothers and fathers who needed to be born for us to be here today. And that's a lot of mothers and fathers who needed to exist. And in that sense, we are the part of them that lives on here on earth. So it is that debt of life we owe. And that's part of the reason why it's so much at our core of, like, what is it that, we have the expectation, we have the burden, we have the challenge. It's all of that that's wound in there. And can we hold it all with that sense of compassion and release and go forward? And I think that's kind of the challenge. But there's a beautiful African proverb that says, when you cut your chains, you free yourself. When you cut your roots, you die. So it's this balance that it's like a tightrope that we're trying to walk between honoring our ancestors and yet forging our own paths.
And very difficult for people to step into if they've had horrific experiences directly as a child, or people, people are messed up. They do messy things. I wonder, there's a part in your book I know where you talk about using divine mother and divine father energy. And I'm thinking for those who have had difficult childhoods, can you give us sort of an example of how we can use archetypal energy if we didn't have a nourishing, loving mother or a strong, protective dad, if we had a whole other set of circumstances? How do you use archetypes to support this kind of healing?
I think in a lot of religions, there is this archetypal mother energy. Even if we don't have a loving, nurturing father energy, the mother energy exists. And we also see it in nature, when nature is also like the mothering energy. So the question is, how do we tap into it? And often some of these stories start, they start in religion, but they sort of get muddied. So that's not where I like to go. But if there are any stories that appeal to you, I mean, if one is like Catholic, or there's the Virgin Mary, or there's different, but if there's none of those appeal to you, then there's Mother Nature, the ultimate mother, the mother of all mothers and fathers, and just feeling that this is the nurturing energy that feeds us, that feeds the whole world, because we all depend on her for life. We forget that how deeply we're connected to the earth, born of the earth. But those stories that were part of our ancestry, that were part of our cultural ancestry, wherever we came from. We have Nordic legends, we have Greek legends, we have like so many that have like this archetypal mother energy. And to just find one that resonates with you. I find nowadays a lot of people I know resonate with Kuan Yin, who's the Buddhist divine mother of compassion. A lot of people resonate with that energy, and that's a starting place. Even if maybe that's not necessarily your religion, it's a place to tap into that feeling, to read about her, to tap into that. Those are some of the ways, and just simply by thinking of her or thinking of Mother Earth, if that's more appealing, maybe lighting a candle for a representation, stopping by that altar, feet on the ground, feeling the grounding exercise that so many people like encourage, the feeling that this energy from the earth is coming in, supporting you, holding you, flowing through you, up, out, back, down. And those are all ways of connecting.
Well, that's the beauty of what you're talking about, is you use the word appeal. I think it has to appeal as opposed to a dogma, because I know a lot of people are just so turned off with anything organized. If something appeals to you, that to me is a direct move forward in terms of this. And, as you were talking about nature, I saw a tree and the rootedness of a tree, which can be masculine also. Like it's not, it can hold both energies. I also find it super interesting to work with the ones I don't like, because that tells me I'm cut off usually from that. Like when you mentioned Kuan Yin, not my goddess, like there's the softness is something that I've had to open to and learn to cultivate, because I, in this patriarchal world, perceive them as too soft. And so I'd be drawn to, we've talked about this before, Mark, I'm drawn to Hecate. I'm drawn to these ones with bows and arrows because they can also protect goddesses, right?
Yes,
So it's all information. When you respond to something emotionally, it's information to not necessarily go yes, no, but to go interesting and just breathe into it and try, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
try and see what works.
Yes. It's an invitation to explore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, I just wanted to say there are two flower essences. One is a grounding flower essence. It's called, I think it's called Grounding Green. And that allows you to tap into the energy of Mother Earth. The second one is Mariposa Lily, which is like taps into the universal mothering energy.
Huh.
So those two essences usually are ones that start the journey of exploration.
So these aren't Bach flower remedies, are
No,
they? So I need to hear. Let's introduce this topic, because I'm super interested in two that I don't know about, and thinking, wow, like one for the feminine, one for the masculine, in terms of cultivating that. That's exciting to me. But maybe give our listeners a little bit of an overview of what flower essence remedies are and how they work. And then I'd love to hear more about Mariposa Lily and grounding green.
So flower essences, we can think of them as medicine directly from Mother Nature. So in a lot of cultures, dew was considered sacred. It was considered to have healing properties. And it has existed for, thousands of years. But clearly, it's very hard to collect enough dew. And so in the 1930s, there was a British surgeon, Dr. Bach, as he's called there. But he was a British surgeon. And he found a way to capture the energetic healing property of dew and to stabilize it so that it could be used. So what flower essences really are, there are wildflower infusions of the energetic properties of a flower, and it's preserved in spring water with brandy. So that's really what the flower essences are. And if I were to say what they are, I call them, when you take flower essences, you are drinking the nectar of possibility for your life. That's what they really are. They work with your emotions. So with kind of the limbic system of the brain, with your energy field, and they shift the thoughts and the emotions. They tap into your internal guidance system. They tap into your inner sense of where I should go, what I should do, trusting yourself. Because a lot of times from childhood, we are taught not to, we start on this journey where we stop trusting ourselves, we stop trusting our knowing. And the flower essences literally are taking you back to yourself.
Mm-hmm. And this is homeopathy, right? Which I know a lot of people struggle with because they say, but it's nothing. If it's tested, there's nothing there. And I'm blessed that my first encounter was rescue. And a friend, literally, we saw an accident. I was hyperventilating. I was so distraught. He said, open your mouth. And like a little bird, I opened my mouth, and he put a couple of drops under, and I literally 30 seconds and and I went, what the hell did you just give me? So I had the experience before my mind could doubt that the experience would even work. And it was rescue remedy, which is one of the Bach flower remedies, a combination for when you're in a state of extreme distress, right? Which I think everybody should have in their home.
Which everybody should have. And a lot of film stars use it, when they audition and go for something. But so in the US, they're classified as homeopathic, but their method of preparation and everything is completely different from homeopathy.
Ah, okay.
So they're not exactly made the same way. And it is really the alchemy of water, sunlight, air, the earth, like the energy of the flower, really, that is yes.
And one thing, I just, if I may,
Mm-hmm.
it takes me back to what you were talking about, Mother Earth and Mother Nature as well, where, it just got me thinking, we're so disconnected from nature, even in our food, for the majority of people, because even what we think we're getting from the stores isn't their food-like products. We're not connected. So it just fired off a bunch of thoughts for me that connects those dots, where when we have a pure essence of nature come in, plants are medicine. And the more we learn about these different, abilities that plants have to impact us, especially physiologically, and what that can do to open up, just like in your story, Tasha, how that, and I like what you said is, you experienced it before you had a chance to even think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is profound, because of, we keep talking about stuff and people don't have that experience.
Well, then it's called placebo. They go, well, it's just a placebo because you thought you were going to be calm, and ultimately, does it really matter? But the point of my story was it wasn't a placebo because I didn't know what was happening. I just opened my mouth, truly like a bird, like, that visual of a sparrow from Mother.
Yeah.
Tell us more though about this Mariposa lily and the grounding green. If it's not Bach, who's created those?
The Flower Essence Society of California. So it's a big research station. They make these flower essences. So you can just get it online from FES, floweressenceservices.com, FES.
Okay, I'm going to be doing that. It's going to sit on my counseling table. You want to connect above and below. This is how we're going to do it. This will help you. That's so cool.
Yeah. I also, Tasha, I want to just say something based on what you said. We are programmed to believe that we are rational beings and we have emotions. But if we flipped it, that we are really emotional beings who rationalize what happened to us, then suddenly our emotions take center stage.
Yeah.
And because healing is a journey of the heart, no matter how much we intellectually can say, my parents or my grandparents or this or that, ultimately we have to heal from the heart. And how do we shift the energy of the emotion and open the heart? You need something that will do that.
Mm-hmm. I love
and that's
that.
not coming from the intellectual realm. It's not coming from, connecting with textbooks, or so it's coming from that which is going to open the heart, which is, behind bars and protected and layers of padlocks.
Mm-hmm.
We need something that will softly open one key after the other.
And this is where you find the flower essences super helpful, yes, to add to this work.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
I love it. So could you touch on the primary laws of a family energy field? Can we get into those?
Yeah, we can. And I think sometimes it can be a little hard to understand them just as a lay person, but because you really see them so starkly in a family constellation. But the first one is that, parents give and children receive. And so what we really mean by that is parents, because they give life, they always give more. And the way it plays out is, if as a child, you're always trying to make your mother happy or a father happy, or trying to make them happy, then it goes into trying to make other people happy, making your spouse happy, you lose yourself in the process. And because we can never make anyone happy, people start to experience like depression, or losing their center, losing their boundary, losing their sense of groundedness, because it's just it's really an impossible task.
And when it's reversed, it's even worse, right? And in some family systems, it's reversed, that law. Do you know what I mean? That your job, I'm making this up, right? To a child, the energy to a child is, your role is to save my marriage. No one says that consciously, but that could be why they had a kid, for instance, or, this child's going to make me so happy, thinks mother. And then, it's already in the system. The reversal of that law has already been distorted and flipped. Where the expectation is this son will become whatever, and he will now, redeem the family, or whatever it is. These are the repercussions, right? These symptoms when that law is reversed or not upheld. Is that how you see it?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
And that's where we are starting to see again, the importance of emotion and the disconnection from ourselves.
Yeah.
The projecting outside and setting up this pattern of unhappiness. And often It can be a lifelong pattern of unhappiness.
I
Whether
think
you're trying to make the mother happy or any parent or anybody happy, or you have this feeling like no matter what I do, it's never enough.
Yeah. Okay. What
Mm.
else? What other laws have we got here?
The second one is that everybody belongs in a family. And that's, that really brings up the law of karma, because it's about all the relationships. It's about, what we do to somebody in a family. If somebody is marries in, how do we treat them? How do we behave with them? In the end, so when things happen in a family, it could be that in a previous generation, they treated someone really badly. There was maybe a murder or something happened. So how does all of that play out in the following generation? Sometimes things are not spoken of. In my book, I have the story of the client who had a great uncle who was hung, and his son was experiencing those symptoms. So, the family, while we have the direct line of mothers and fathers, the family energy field is so big because it has so many different kinds of people in it who are not necessarily your immediate relatives, but they still impact your life. And that's why the process of honoring that happened across so many traditions, it allows you not to know the details, but it allows this field to sort of stop affecting you.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say, or how would you guide someone who says, well, I don't really have a family. I don't, I've never belonged to it. And now it's complete, I'm cut off, or for whatever reason, it's all been fragmented. What would you advocate there?
I think in much of the work that I feel we can do as individuals, we have more power than we think we have. We don't really need to know our family. We don't need to be in touch with them. And sometimes we have family members we actually may or may not want to be in touch with. So there's no judgment about that. But I think what we can do is energetically say they belong in the family. And energetically, perhaps pray for the lineage, or light a candle for everybody in the lineage. And then those who, the lineage comes to restore peace. The lineage comes to help. So we don't have to actually interact or get involved with one particular family member. We can set this energetic boundary simply by, praying for the field as a whole. When we get strong enough, we can pray for that ancestor if we like, or that relative, but we don't have to do it right away.
Mm-hmm. And I can see it being so challenging, again, if you come from a dysfunctional, distorted kind of experience. It's really hard because you've got to, let's touch on forgiveness, because I don't know how you could honor your ancestors without an element or an understanding of forgiveness. Would you agree?
I think when we think of forgiveness, it's a tricky word, because what we're saying is, first, in family constellation, what we say, we cannot forgive our parents because it assumes that we got to be bigger than them to forgive. And I think what we really want when it comes to parents is it's not like we want to forgive them, because some things may not be forgivable.
Mm-hmm.
But what we want to tell ourselves, that what I'm expecting from you, which is an acknowledgement of what you did, I want you to say sorry. I want you to recognize that you hurt me, that you misbehaved, you did all these things. And if we can recognize for ourselves that all of those things that we want may not come, and free ourselves from that expectation of wanting that, then we can reclaim our power back. Because if I want nothing, then I'm free in a way. I'm no longer a victim, because I've let go of my expectation because it's beyond what can be received.
Hmm.
And when you reclaim your power, you actually release the victimhood, because that's really what ancestral healing is. It's releasing the feeling that you're a victim of what came before you.
Right. The one that really helps me is a deep kind of knowing or belief that I chose this. Now, again, people struggle with that because I'm not saying I chose the horrific thing I experienced per se, but if I chose this system, this family lineage to be born into, if my soul chose that, it completely takes you out of this is happening to me and this is and toward this is happening for me and I'm a participant. So what am I meant to do with this? It just is a more totally out of victimhood, right?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I would say that the two flower essences that are really powerful, if we go back, and these are Bach ones, are willow and holly.
For this victim feeling.
Yeah, they really work to release, that.
That's cool. Okay. All right. Do we have some more laws you want to touch on?
I think we have a loyalty, this is the part that you already talked about, that we have a loyalty to the belief system of our family, to the belief system of our parents, a belief to the tribe, to the race we belong to the, uh, all of that. And we have, part of letting go of our feeling of being a victim of our family, part of it is also being consciously aware of how are these belief systems like running my life unconsciously, but I'm, acting out in a certain way. And as we release that conditioning, we can honor our family, we can honor their belief system without getting triggered by it, but we can start to be part of something bigger. In the end, you find you're part of the world family. The only religion should be humanity. That's really what it should be.
Is this connected? I know in the book you mentioned that the ancestral field may not always be ready to give up its secrets, is I think how you phrased it. Does this kind of thinking, maybe the open question is what creates readiness? What promotes readiness for these secrets to arise within a family system and be let go?
I think when there's an opportunity for healing. And I want to say that, sometimes people feel like, why is this pattern repeating in my life? Why do I get stuck in the same kind of relationships? Why am I always the one who is doing the repair work, like trying to bring family members together? But actually, in some ways, it relates to what you said. You are doing the most sacred work in your family. You are doing the repair work. It is really a sacred task. So we forget how important that task is and feel like, oh my God, why am I always the one? But you probably took it upon yourself to do that healing work, to do the work for the generations to come.
And I think one of your parts of the book is coming home to yourself, right? The journey home. I mean, that's if you think of it that way, you're not doing it for them. You're doing it for you also, right?
Yes. Yes.
It's your journey home.
Yeah.
What do you think is most important to understand about that intention to come home to oneself, to bring the soul home to awareness?
I think it helps you to live without expectation. It really gives you the capacity to live life with a certain freedom, because life it is always challenging, because we're always being pushed to grow and evolve. And I think the more you come home to yourself, the more you work with your emotions, recognize that your emotions are an invitation to go in, to connect within, you can start to release your expectations of others. The more you connect, in my book, I have these 4 pillars, which is, I think, this framework, like I like to call it home: honoring your ancestors, observing your emotions, magnify your spiritual connection, So you start to see synchronicities, you start to see that you're being taken care of, life is happening for you, and engage with Mother Earth, our true mother. And as we start to do that, we come home to ourselves, we really release our expectation of others, the fear comes down, and we start to be able to live from that space of wonder, mystery, magic. Yeah, it becomes, life starts to have that beautiful quality about it. Our relationships get smoother. There's less friction.
Right. I love that you're mentioning synchronicities and coincidences. Do you have any cool stories where you noticed those things and somehow they were connected with the work either a client or you were doing? A synchronicity or a coincidence?
I feel like there's so much part of my daily life. I somehow forget, but I was just telling Mark before you came on. I was given two little animals, like a dragon, with a blue-eyed dragon and a panther, to keep on my writing desk while I was writing my book. And I had to go to Philly for the weekend. And just before I left, my husband said to me, he said, I don't know why this is one of your books and it's in my office. And it was a book, it's Alberto Violdo's book. And it's called, I forget, the Four Winds or something about the American medicine wheel. And on it had a picture of a panther just like this. And I went to Philly and we were on the Drexel campus and there's this huge dragon, huge. It's their mascot. And I was like, oh my God. And with the book coming out in like 2 weeks, I wanted to take a picture. I thought I'd take a picture of myself with the dragon, like a selfie. And 2 people came and stopped and said, we'll take that picture for you. And I'm thinking, this has got to be like amazing. Yeah. I have these 2 animals and they show up this weekend. So to me, it was significant. It was really meaningful. It was I feel like part of the journey to say, you know what, it's time for the book to come out.
Yeah, I love that. I love how the dots connect with synchronicities. And I don't even call them coincidences. Like, to me, it's like information. And it's up to me whether I accept it or not. Because as soon as you start to analyze it, game over. Kind of. For me, my experience is all of a sudden I'm off on some tangent and it's irrelevant. It's usually the first hit and it's emotional. It's like, like the first breath, the first moment in response is the accurate one. That's the intuition. And if you follow it, then it's very much like a rose opening its petals and you get more and more and more. And I love that feeling. Yeah.
I have to say, Tasha, one of the real synchronicities, now that you've asked me, is I will go and people will come and talk to me about their family members. I was in Miami and there was a man who comes up to me and says, oh, you're from India. And he starts to say, oh, once I went on a sailing ship. Then he says, I'm coming back. He must have been in his 70s. He brings a photograph of his father. But I'm thinking, what is this going on? But people come and bring their stories about their family members. And I feel like they don't know what work I do. But to me, that is incredibly meaningful. It means there's something that I'm bearing witness to. And I don't know what it is, but it makes me feel that whatever I'm doing must have some meaning.
And I know you're a big fan of, in your honoring of ancestors, creating an altar. I don't know if all of our listeners have an altar or understand that. Maybe we can talk about that ritual for you. And I'd also love to, I know we had mentioned the prayers that you give to the ancestors. I'm almost thinking if you paint the picture of the altar and what one would put on an altar to create it, maybe we can then include these prayers for our listeners to just feel how one can honor one's ancestors.
So just an ancestral altar is a way of anchoring the ancestral energy. It's we're not necessarily praying to our ancestors, we're praying for our ancestors. And I think this is an important distinction, because we're praying for their souls to continue on their journey, for them to find peace and harmony in whatever realms they are. And so if anyone decides to set up an ancestral altar, like don't do it in the bedroom because it's a place where you're anchoring energies. Do it in a hallway, living room, or any other room. Not on the floor, but just above the floor, like a table or a shelf or something. You can place a fabric on it that represents something from your culture, or even a piece of red cloth, which represents the energy of Mother Earth. And anything, if you don't have pictures of your ancestors, put representations from the part of the world you're from. We talked about stories that appeal to you that might, use representations. If you have an object, anything from nature, a feather, pebbles, flowers, anchor the energy of the altar with something that is higher vibrational grounding, whether it's flowers, incense, water, sound, all of those things that raise and lift the frequency of the altar. That's kind of important if you can do that.
Describe your altar for us. What's
So
on it today?
So in India, we don't really necessarily have ancestral altars, but a lot of small shops will have pictures of their ancestors and like light the incense and the candles before they open their shop for business. But I have an altar where I have pictures of, or little statues of those that appeal to me. But I also have my husband, did bring Kuan Yin from one of his travels. So she sits on my altar. He did bring the Virgin Mary from one of his travels to Mexico. So she sits on my altar, So when my book came out, I wanted to express my gratitude for having, brought this book to life. And so I placed the book on the altar as a measure of my gratitude. And I stop by it every day because it's the place where where you discharge the emotions that are coming up. Either you express your gratitude, you express your sorrow, your anxiety, and you get support from that invisible realm.
I've got pictures of all the friends who've passed as well. And so I talk to that space. It's a way to, like, I say good morning, I touch things, I'm in communication. And for me, that's really helpful because sometimes the archetypal energies are fantastic, but for me to have something that is immediate heart-centered, like immediately I know this person who's passed had my back, loved me, I love them. And so immediately I'm in a heart communication, not a logical one necessarily.
Yeah. Oh, how beautiful. That's beautiful, Tasha.
Yeah, except for when people are coming over and my son is like, could we put this one, could we take this one away for now? Because he knows that somebody who's coming over would have an emotional reaction. And of course, in my world, I'm thinking, great, that they would have an emotional reaction. He's thinking, he's a millennial, and he's thinking, no, we want everyone to be calm here. Like that whole, yeah. Anyway, so can we move to the prayer? We kind of painted a picture, put what you love and what moves your heart on this altar. And then can you, it's in the book too. And I just have to say for our listeners, I love that you're offering tools. I love that you are offering visualizations and questions and different ways to heal. And that to me is always so valuable. So it's not in the head. It's really, your book feels like an invitation to the heart to do this work and move towards this kind of journey home. So I thank you for writing it and putting it all together. And I wonder if you can take us on a little journey right now with some of the words from your book. Would you be willing to do that?
Yeah, so I can read out this prayer, which is a daily prayer that I say for my ancestors that I came up with. I do say it after sunrise, and it has to be said before sunset, because that's how it's done in India, before after sunrise and before sunset. And just ground yourself and breathe as you do that. And then you can say the prayer whenever you are ready. The way I say it is, to my maternal lineage, 3 generations before me, I bow before you. May the lineage be in peace and love and light and harmony. May each of you be in peace, love, light, and harmony. I'm grateful for all that I have received from this lineage, including the gifts of the challenges I face. To my paternal lineage, 3 generations before me, I bow before you. May the lineage be in peace and love and light and harmony. May each of you be in peace, love, light, and harmony. I'm grateful for all that I have received from this lineage, including the gifts of the challenges I face. Once I've said this prayer, I visualize the current living generations standing in front of this lineage, the children, mine, my nieces, nephews in front, my generation standing behind them, and those in my parents' generation behind us. So 3 generations in front of the ancestral lineages. And the prayer goes like this: from this place of light, love, and harmony, I ask you to bless us all as we stand here before you. I ask you to bless all the children in the lineage, including those who are yet to come. I ask you to bless all of us who stand behind these children as we struggle and muddle through. Bless us with your love and guidance. May there always be peace and harmony among us. I ask you to bless those who stand behind us, including those who I may not know or may have forgotten. And then I ended with Om Shanti, 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 which is just peace, peace, peace. And I say this prayer from my lineage, even though I don't necessarily know everybody. I never knew my grandfathers. I barely saw my grandmothers. But as I said, I try to release feelings of anger or anything else that I might be holding towards the lineage and get the support to release it.
That was lovely. Thank you. Can you help me though? Now my rational mind is back. Help me see it again, because I got a little confused with where the generations were standing. Can you just do that part again? So there's in front of you.
Yeah. So I imagine myself standing with my maternal lineage and paternal lineage.
Yeah.
A V in front of me, like, like almost like a flock of flying geese, 2 sides. And then if I'm standing facing them in front of them, then I imagine the generation in front of me, which is the children. Then my generation, which is all the cousins and everybody from either side. And then my parents' living generation behind me, like my mother, who's
that's where I got confused. So, but in front of you is not your mother and father?
My father's passed. So my father is in front of me because he's passed as part of my paternal lineage. My mother is alive. She stands behind me.
Got you. So it's the people who are still here right now are also behind you. Those in front are the ones who have passed.
Yes.
Got it. That was the piece I was missing. Thank you. Thank you. Well, this has really been a pleasure. Tell people where they can get your book. Is it all the usual places, or it really is lovely? Again, the book is called Heal Your Ancestral Roots, Release the Family Patterns That Hold You Back.
It's available wherever books are sold. Barnes and Noble, Amazon, Inner Traditions from their website. So wherever any of the books are sold. And if people go to my website, which is healyourancestral.roots.com, they can download a list of 10 flower essences, key essences that help shift relationship patterns when we sort of feel stuck in them.
I love that. Fantastic. And of course, all the links will be available. Mark's going to put them up on our website.
They already are.
consciousliving.radio.org. You're so pro. And any information that you want about Anura will be there as well. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's really been a pleasure.
Thank you both. It's been lovely to talk with you. Thank you so much.
We've been speaking with Anuradha Dayal-Gulati and about her book, Heal Your Ancestral Roots, Release the Family Patterns That Hold You Back. Thanks for joining us today. You've been listening to Conscious Living Radio. I'm Tasha Simms.
And I'm Mark Curran.
See you next time.
And we're on 100.5 FM CFRO Vancouver.
There you go.
We always like to make sure we get that in there
Get
for
those call
the
letters
station.
in.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Mark.
Awesome. Thanks again.